This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. I'm Steve Gould, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing? How is everything going with you? Thank you for being here. Thank you for finding the podcast. If you're a repeat listener or return listener, I appreciate you. Thank you for coming back. This is the show where I would say the best show out there that highlights war stories from law enforcement, from the men and women of law enforcement. No holds barred. Yeah. Just unedited, exactly how they experience them, so you can get a taste of what it's actually like, what these people actually have to deal with on the job, and gain a better appreciation for what they do. That's the whole point of the show. Thank you for all the rating and reviewing. Thank you for the Patreon subscribers. Truly appreciate that. If you really love the show, you can't get enough, and you really want to show me some love, Patreon's a place to do that. You can do that right in the show notes. Click on it. A couple of different options there to pick from, but rest assured, the show will remain free. If you don't have the money or it's not in the budget, I totally get it. There's so many things that are not in my budget that I just want to do, but I can't, so don't worry about that. But rating and reviewing, 5-star reviews are always a good way, or send me a message. I love getting messages from you guys. I get tons. If I don't respond right away, that's just because in today's day and age, there is a lot of ways to get messages. So there's Instagram Messenger, and then my personal Instagram Messenger thing, and then Facebook Business Suite because of the business page for the show. Emails, 2 different emails, and then sometimes my main email is like real aggressive with filtering out junk mail. So I actually routinely go through that and find your messages. So just know I'm not ignoring you. I just need to find how you chose to get a hold of me. But I would say steve@thingspolicec.com is definitely the best way to do that. So if you have a message or encouragement or even constructive criticism is welcome. But straight up hate mail, please don't do that, because that affects my ego too greatly. So today's show is going to be a great one. We've tried it twice. We had some technical difficulties, which happens sometimes, but this time I'm relatively confident that we're good to go. I feel like a wet rat or a wet dog. I had a call yesterday that involved removing somebody from a house by court order, and which we have to do sometimes, and is never that much fun, because usually when you go to get somebody, they have stuff in the house and they want to bring all of the stuff, and you're like, no, just grab a few things, then you can come back, get the order amended to bring the appropriate moving stuff or whatever. So anyways, this whole thing's going on, and there is a huge storm coming through where I work, like lightning storm. Trees are going down, the radio's going off with roads being blocked all around the county. It's just it was a total nightmare. Torrential downpour. One of those downpours when like your wipers can't go fast enough. You just can't see. Also, obviously, super humid out. It was super humid, so everything's fogging. I get there, and it just involved me being outside a lot while trying to manage this thing in a complete downpour. And if you're a cop, you know the struggle I'm talking about. If you're not, we carry a bunch of stuff on us, and it's really not designed to get soaking wet. Like, this was so bad that afterwards I had to take all the stuff out of my pouches, and like water is pouring out of my taser. The handcuffs are filled. My tourniquet pouch is filled with water. It was a night, and then that was the beginning of my shift. So I spent the whole shift just soaked down to my boots and my underpants. So I feel weird and off a little bit. So thankfully, we have a hell of a guest on with a really cool career. I'm so excited to have him. 18 years on the job. He's working Central North Dakota. He's done patrol, FTO, street crimes unit, and he's currently on the Marshal's task force, which is really cool. I want to ask him some questions about that. So without further ado, let me bring on Tommy G. I like that, Tommy G. What's going on, man?
We'll take it.
Absolutely.
Just happy to be here. Happy it's working today.
Dude, yeah, me too. That was so weird last time. What happened was every time we got 5 minutes in,
Yeah.
Tom would
It's like
black
right
out.
at 5 minutes, just gone.
Yeah, it was almost like a setting or something. But then we tried different phones. So, anyways, we're good now. We've been on for longer than 5 minutes, and
It's been 10 minutes now.
it's been 10 minutes, baby. I like it. Tom, Central North Dakota, born and raised there?
Yep.
Really, that's awesome, man. That just seems like one of those states to me that's just like, when you're from the Northeast where everything's so built up and there's not a lot of open space and it's kind of confining feeling. Those Western states to me are like real Americana, like open plains, stuff like that. So cool.
My wife is from the West Coast in Washington, and she loves the trees and the mountains and stuff. And every time we're on the interstate going somewhere, I'm like, look at this. You can see every horizon, north, south, east, west. You can see to the horizon.
Yeah.
I love that.
I've said that before, but there is something about seeing a long way that, like, it's very peaceful or something. Like when we lived in Southern California and then we moved to the high desert, and a bunch of times I visited my parents when they were in Arizona. There just is something that really draws me to it. I really like living in an area like that.
Yeah, I think the mountains and the forests are beautiful, but I prefer being able to see forever and see the summer storms rolling in, and
Yeah,
it's nice to see that instead of just a wall of trees.
absolutely, man. And and you guys out there too were early adopters of like patrol rifles. I think because of that, like the states like Texas and all the states that have like very long, big, wide open areas. I used to teach at our Citizens Police Academy, and it was kind of it was probably over 10 years ago now when I started doing that. And people always kind of want an explanation for why the AR-15, because it looks so aggressive, It's just a semi-automatic rifle, but it looks like a weapon of, everybody sees it in war movies. And that was one of my examples was the Western states. These guys, I'm like, this isn't new. Those guys have had these weapons for a long time out of necessity, because a 12 gauge with buckshot isn't going to do you any good if you're engaging somebody 100 yards out.
Like the deputies and the troopers are sometimes going up these 1/4 mile long driveways, and everybody out here has a scoped hunting rifle.
Yeah.
So that's sketchy.
Yeah, I would feel like everybody's a sovereign citizen out there because they have these huge ranches. Like, you're on my property, boy.
Right.
Tom, so the Marshals Task Force, I got a bunch of questions to ask you, but so you're like a city police officer, and you're assigned to the task force also as a collateral duty?
Right. Yep. About 90% of what I do is for the task force.
Oh, okay. That's great.
And we adopt state warrants,
They'll help you with that.
They have to meet a certain criteria, violent crime or high level drug offense. It can't just, can't be possession of drugs or something like that. But we work mostly state level warrants. And then most of the federal warrants we work are just like the federal probation violations that we got to go grab these people and stuff. So,
okay. So with
the state warrants are usually the worst ones.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For my jurisdiction anyway.
Gotcha. With the marshals, they do a lot. I mean, they like run federal courts and do security and even like guard judges and stuff. But there's not a huge amount of like marshals that do the field work like that, right? That I know.
Yeah, I think most people don't realize that being a marshal is a lot of just driving people back and forth from local jails and taking them to federal court hearings and taking them back and transporting to another jail out of state that actually has room for marshals inmates, and it's mostly doing that.
Yeah, it seems like almost like a giant sheriff's department, like because they do a lot of the jail stuff, But when you see movies, they're always like the badasses, the marshals, baby.
Yeah, no, I always joke that I have one of the best jobs in the marshal service. I don't even work for them, so.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from guys that are on task force, like say like with like a anti-terrorism task force or like an ATF task force, like. The guys that are local guys that are on the team, that's like the best gig.
Yeah.
That's really
exactly.
cool. Especially when they can help you out with like you said, state warrants and stuff like that.
Right.
That's cool. Yeah. We had Mark Cameron on the show. It's a royal we. I always say we, it's just me. I had Mark Cameron on the show. And he was US Marshal, and he's also took over obviously writing for Tom Clancy. But he has some stories that are, these federal guys a lot of times are like, I always imagine with all these resources, but a lot of times they don't have that. Like if they're doing an investigation or they're looking for somebody, it's pretty hairy.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Yeah,
I did listen to that interview. That was a good one.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. So with the marshals, you're doing 90% with them. So are you coming into work like plain clothes, and you can pretty much just kind of let a lieutenant or something know what you're doing?
Yeah, a couple times a week, my partner and I, we have to do bailiff duties for municipal court, and that's the price we got to pay to have fun the rest of the time.
Right.
So that's uniformed, and then we see our municipal prisoners in the jail while the judge does the Zoom hearings, and other than that, we're just plain clothes, rolling around in our minivan and doing whatever.
That's great. So what percentage of federal stuff are you doing versus state?
As far as warrants,
Yeah.
I would say 90% state.
Oh, wow. All right. So you're doing a fair
Yeah.
amount of that stuff. That's cool. And these guys, marshals, are they usually, we used to have a state, or we still do, but I haven't used them in a long time, but a state fugitive task force. And I swear these guys would show up in the back parking lot and they had like no necks. They were just huge. And they'd put, wear the vest on the outside, like not even a carrier, just like a normal vest. And they were when they went to somebody's house for someone that we were looking for, they went in, they looked everywhere. Even ducting that didn't look like could fit a human, they were looking up there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Most of the time, 90% of the time, we just do surveillance and wait and try to grab open air. It's
Gotcha.
just a lot less complicated when they're just outside. But, these guys aren't out walking their dog very often. So sometimes you got to wait a while.
Yeah, I gotcha. So the marshals are mainly doing warrants. They're not, or are they doing investigations too?
I think they're starting to do a few more investigations, but they're generally just in charge of apprehension.
Gotcha. Like bounty hunters, kind of.
Basically.
Not really, but like what people think of bounty hunters are grabbing the
Right.
bad guys. That's cool, man. So, Tom, can you take us back to a young officer, Tom G, and tell us about the first call you had, your first hot call, let's say?
This was probably one of the harder questions because it was, it's a long time ago, and it's not even a hot call, but it was me at 22.
Well,
not
hot to
knowing
you. Yeah,
anything
yeah.
About anything. Well, it was, I was with my FTO on, I think it was the first day I was in the squad with him. I'm in the passenger seat and I'm just taking it all in, like trying to get comfortable in my uniform and just like trying not to touch any buttons in the car that I don't know what they do. And,
Right.
and we're chatting and just, we're heading south over a bridge and this car comes flying up northbound. I don't even really notice it. And my FTO just looks at it, hits the radar button, locks it in, spins around and stops him. And he was going, I don't know, I think it was like 60 or 70 in a 35 zone. Just spins around, stops him, normal traffic stop. And it blew my mind. I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. Like he was just so nonchalant about seeing the guy, hitting the radar, locking it in, turning around, writing him a ticket. I'm like, there's absolutely no way I can do this. So it's something as minor as that on my first day. I was like, oh shit, I can't do this.
Yeah, you're truly drinking from a fire hose when you get into FTO. And
yeah, and that was
like,
back in the day. I didn't have any like in-house training beforehand or anything. So like I was second day as a cop. I was like, I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, you feel like I'm never going to be where this guy's at with how quickly he's picking. It's like second nature to him.
Yeah, and then the same FTO. He was a great guy, but when he finally let me drive the car, it was our first call that we needed to actually get to, and it was just a bar fight. It was no big deal. But he looks at me, he's like, "Don't drive like a pussy." So we get to the parking lot, and the brakes are just smoking, and he looks at me, he's like, not that fast. So,
I think that's good. I think if you can do that to your FTO, that's he probably respected you for that.
well, 10 years later, fight in progress call, you just drive as slow as you can with the siren on. Hope everybody's gone when you get there.
All right, so they hear you coming.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that when you're new, like I remember when I was brand new, I worked with a guy that we had a highway that went through town, and he could car going the opposite way, he would just grab the plate and put it in. Like he just
Yeah.
just absorb the numbers. And I'm one of those people, like if I'm running, if I want to sit on the side of the road and run plates, I have like a little pair of binoculars because my brain just doesn't, I'm a lot better at it now, but my brain doesn't, I can't pick them up as quick because there's all these different letters and number combinations, obviously, in a license plate. And if the car is going fast, I don't have the kind of mind where I can just like, I probably need glasses, but can pick it up. But that was intimidating to me, someone who's able to like, just like look around and grab license plates as they're passing by and run one or two at a time. I was like, I'm never going to be able to do that. And I still can't.
My partner is the same way. He's Rain Man with that. A week later, he'll be like, we ran that plate last week. That was to so-and-so. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. I have been on meetups with cops before, chatting, and a car will go by and they'll be like, oh, I ran that last week. I think he was about to expire. And I'm like, dude, I can't remember what I ran yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. It's good to have those people around because I don't know what they're talking about, but I trust them.
Yeah, real bird dogs, you know?
Yeah.
All right, Tom, can you tell us about the most bizarre call that you dealt with?
I have a couple written down. I don't know. This could take a while, but
No, that's fine, brother.
we're
here for it.
God, I don't remember how long ago this was, but it was when I worked in a smaller town west of here, kind of during the meth lab epidemic, toward the tail end of it. But we had an oil boom in that town where a ton of people moved in and kind of doubled the town's population, and so we had some meth labs pop up here and there. And one day it's just a slow. I think it was a weekday afternoon. And nothing was going on. All of a sudden, we got some calls from this apartment complex that there had been an explosion in the building. So we get there, and we're all thinking meth lab exploded or whatever. And the lower level windows on one apartment on the corner, they were all popped out of their frames. They weren't shattered, but they were all popped out of the frames on the corner. So we're like, well, obviously that's the place. And so we set up a perimeter and start doing our thing. The fire department shows up, and they go in to check for fire or whatever, and they come out and they start doing their decon, and one of them comes up to me. He's like, dude, it's real fucked up in there, man. I'm like, what's up? And he's like, well, it looks like the epicenter of the blast was in the bathroom, but in one of the bedrooms there's a video camera on a tripod, and there's a mannequin in a dress laying on the bed.
What?
That is weird.
Yeah.
And it's like, nobody else is in there. We're like, okay, well, obviously whoever exploded ran away. And so we're taking care of business on scene, and one of the perimeter officers radios that she's got the suspect that just rolled up to her position and needed help. And so turns out this guy fled the scene because he was scared of being arrested for the meth lab, but he had nowhere to go, so he decided just to come back and face the music. And he's got makeup just flash fried to his face, and his like lacy dress, you can see like the burn marks through the lace onto his chest. And what had happened was he told us that his roommate cooks meth using the 2-liter bottle shake and bake method.
Oh, the one pots.
Yeah.
Ooh,
so
dangerous.
his roommate always goes home for the weekend, but he always cleans up the little meth labs before he goes. But this weekend his roommate forgot to. So after his roommate left, this guy's like, I'm going to shake the rest of the meth out of this or whatever. He doesn't know what he's doing. But he said every time he does meth, he gets these sexy feelings, and he was going to make a video with that mannequin.
Oh, my gosh.
So this poor guy not only blows
Sexy
himself
feelings.
up, he blows his apartment up. Then he has to come back to the police and ask for help, and then go to jail with makeup and a dress burned to him.
Oh, my gosh. So many questions.
Felt bad for that guy.
Yeah, that's really sad. It's like, dude, doing
Still
math.
going to remember him a decade later, though. I sometimes wonder what he's up to.
Look him up. Hey, man, how you doing? Things going better in your life? If he's
Still has the makeup
alive.
burned to his face.
That's crazy. So he had makeup on, and I was thinking of like one of those movies when they hold the makeup machine to their face and it shoots it on. So
I think he wanted to get fully prepared before he cooked the last of the meth, and
obviously
get busy with that mannequin.
right. Yeah, he's got his priorities.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. I don't. That's crazy that the pressure was so high from the explosion that it popped the windows out, and somehow his head wasn't hamburger.
Yeah, it was just they were just popped a little bit out, a couple inches out of their frames, and I don't know.
It blew up
It was,
right in his face.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting the suspect to come back to us and then be wearing a dress and have makeup burned to his face.
That is so weird, man. Sometimes in this job, it's like you're in a movie. You're like, this is unreal.
Those were the days when we had a bunch of meth going around. Now it's all opiates and nobody does crazy shit like that.
Yeah, everybody's like sleepy.
Yeah. No zombies are running around anymore like that.
Yeah, dude, that's crazy. Well, I mean, pretty nice house if it's sealed that tight. Pretty efficient.
It was an average apartment building, I guess.
Yeah, that's wild, man. You got a second one for us?
Yeah. This is a small town again, and typically we don't have vehicle thefts in broad daylight, but we got a call from this car wash where you leave your car at the entrance, an employee grabs it and drives it through, and they hand wash it and all this stuff. And this guy calls and he's like, I think somebody just stole a car from here, because this guy came running out of the car wash and tried my door handle. Then he couldn't get in my car. He jumped in another car and took off. So we're like, okay. So we start looking for it. Can't find it. In like 10, 15 minutes, we kind of drive around, can't find it, just chalk it up, and we'll keep looking for it. And about 45 minutes later, we get a call from a homeowner. He's like, I'm supposed to be home alone, but I think there's somebody in my basement and my whole house smells like gasoline. So we're like, well, obviously these are connected. So we go over there and start ordering this dude out of the basement. And this poor bastard comes out of the basement. He just got skin falling off of him, just head to toe burned up, and he stinks like gasoline. So we get the ambulance crew over there and they start doing their medical, and he's obviously under the influence of meth. And I'm asking him what the hell's going on. And he tells me that he was at the mall and the SWAT team in hazmat suits and canines was chasing him. So he had to run across the interstate to escape them. And he hid in the garden shed behind this gas station. And he knows that the only way to avoid detection by a canine is to pour gasoline on his crotch to cover the scent.
Oh my god!
So he's sitting in this confined space, having poured gasoline on himself to cover his scent, and he's so stressed out from the SWAT team in hazmat suits and canines that he decides he needs a cigarette. So immediate Human Torch, and we went back and I got the video from the gas station, and this guy runs through the back of the car wash, fully engulfed in flames, and he's the luckiest human being in the world that the car wash was running at that moment. He runs through the car wash,
dude,
gets put out, and then steals the car on the outside and takes off. So
what the hell? Small town,
yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Man.
Random stuff.
That's bizarre, dude. So he said guys were chasing him in hazmat suits. Was that true?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe like he ran out of a meth lab and they were about to raid or something.
No, this was just meth at work. So
yeah, meth. They always say coke's a hell of a drug, but I would say meth is a hell of a drug.
Yeah, when you get really into it, they, start seeing hazmat suit SWAT teams.
Yeah. I never understand. I mean, I guess we can't understand it because we're not addicted to meth, but I don't even understand like why you would do it the first time. Like, hey, it's kind of like bath salts. It's like, hey, I might cut my own nose off and eat it. This seems like I understand heroin. I understand.
Absolutely.
I understand pot. I understand all those things. Because I remember I broke my leg in high school football, and they gave me opiates for the pain, and and they gave me Demerol in the hospital, and that truly makes you feel like just chilled out. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I always have kind of a soft spot in my heart for opiate addicts, because I know that a lot of them start out with prescription, legitimate prescriptions, but like nobody ever prescribed anybody meth. So
yeah, that's not maybe in Mexico that's a drug you can get at the drugstore, but damn, man. Yeah, I went to a training on clandestine labs, and we don't really have many in my area at all. But right after the training, a neighboring agency chased a guy for revoked or suspended license, and he ran into the top of a barn with a makeshift meth lab in it, and that was kind of like I just had the class, and there's all these. And he was also making GHB, I think. So there's all these little jars of stuff with tinfoil over them, and they're all labeled. And I was like, it smelt weird. I'm like, I'm just gonna back out and call the.
Yeah, that's sketchy.
Yeah, yeah. I just that because when you take a class on it, they just tell you about the guy that's shaking the one pot, and the cop walks up and he has it between his legs, and it just explodes. Like, man, I don't understand it at all. But like I said, I get the opiate stuff. Like like we were saying, it takes it takes your if you have a terrible life or you want to not think or whatever, I get
Right.
it. But that stuff
Yeah,
is
if you get a prescription of that and you don't have anything else really going on, I could easily see you getting addicted to that.
yeah. I had mine when I was a kid, so I was like 16. But I only took it for a little. In the hospital, it was good because the pain was really bad. When you first stand at a full leg cast, and when you first stand up with a full leg cast, right after the injury, my break was mid shin, fibia, tibia. You could the weight of the cast, you could feel it like separate the stickiness of the bone that's trying to heal. It was horrible feeling. So they kind of took that away, which was cool because then you could get up and take a leak without like peeing in a bedpan or something. But then I had it in high school, and I would take it. I had times of the day that I had to take it. Now I think they take these things away from kids, and the school nurse has to dole it out. But I just had them on me, so I would take one towards the end of the day, and I would always fall asleep and dream that I was falling, and then I would try to straighten my broken leg, and that only happened like 2 times, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna stick with like ibuprofen because I can't do this. So luckily I didn't get addicted to it, but man, that's it's so funny when people, small town cops or not larger agencies you always are going to have to hear from people who have no knowledge of police work. They're going to say, what do you guys even do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no crime around here. There's crime everywhere, and the police see it all. Like they go to every single call. So where there might not be the frequency, there's also not the amount of people. So it's like if you work in a smaller place and you get one of those days where it's a couple big calls in one day, it's busy as hell. It's hard to, like, at a small place, if you get an arrest, that can take you like 2/3 of the way through your shift just dealing with arrest, transport, booking, calling the bail commissioner, and then if you have to bring him to the county, or I don't know how you guys do it, but like it can take your whole day.
Yeah. I mean, once you get done logging your own evidence and writing the report and writing the affidavit and doing all that, you can be down for a while.
Right, dude. I really look fondly on the old days. Like when I started in law enforcement, it was early 2000s, and that the old days were kind of ending, but like there was still in the system, like or on file, there was still like police reports, and it was like they were like 4 sentences. It was like really no information in there. It was really simple. The guy would get arraigned, and then back then for us, we actually had court officers, police officers that would like prosecute the case. Like if you were the court officer, you would actually,
really?
Yeah, it was horrible. My dad told me, he was a cop for 30 years, and he said the court officer job was one of those jobs you get, and then you spend the next year trying to get out of, because you're going against attorneys and you're a cop, so it's not, we deal with things in the moment. We law on the street. We're not hitting the books. So, I don't know why I started talking about that, Tom, but
I don't remember.
Those stories were fantastic. So let's move on here. Can you tell us about the most intense or terrifying call that you went
on? Well, I've been in a couple of shootings. Been present for a handful more where I didn't pull the trigger, but probably the most intense one was where I didn't shoot. It was our first apprehension that we did after my second shooting, and this guy was wanted for a stabbing, and we had him in a vehicle. It was just a little Chevy hatchback with all the rear windows tinted, and we knew he was in the back seat. Patrol helped us with a high-risk stop in a parking lot, and it was fine. Everybody else was cooperative. Everybody else left the car, left the doors open, but the dude was in the car in the back seat behind tint, screaming, "Come get some, come get me, I got a gun, come get my gun," and all this stuff. And this lasted for 5-10 minutes, and we're yelling at him to get out. And I'm posted up with my rifle behind one of the squads, and I can kind of see some shadows behind the tint. So I got my rifle leveled about where I think his head is, and just I'm listening to the other officers kind of make a plan and figure out what we're gonna do. And all of a sudden, I hear a shot ring out, and the back window directly between me and his head explodes. And so I swipe off a safe, and I just about ready to squeeze that trigger, and I realized that it was a 40 millimeter launcher that somebody had sent through the back window. And he
Whoa.
came out right after that and cuffed up. Wasn't a big deal, but the emotional aftermath of that, where it was the first apprehension after a fatal shooting, and I almost killed this guy for no reason
Yeah.
other than somebody neglected to call out 40 40 40, and that was the the intensity of that was probably more than the intensity of an actual shooting. It was like how close I got to shooting this guy, possibly going to prison for murder because this guy had no weapons, and it just was a mistake, and that was pretty intense.
Yeah, I bet, man. You probably thought about that for a while, right before the
Yeah,
the eyelids shut every night.
yeah, yeah, that sucked. But my first shooting was on a SWAT call out back in, God, that was 2012. This dude had strangled his girlfriend. We think he thought that she was dead. At first, he left her laying there unconscious, and then went outside, and her dad was in another shop on the property or something, and he was ramming a pickup into the shop doors trying to get into the shop, and then couldn't do it. And then he fled the scene. But that was out in the county outside of my town, and the next day we were briefed on that we were looking for this guy. So I spent the first few hours of my shift trying to, going to his known associates' places, going to parents' places, and at this point it was an aggravated domestic, so it wasn't a homicide or anything. And after a few hours of checking known residences, known friends' places and stuff, I went back to my regular job. A couple hours later, I overheard county radio saying that they had him in a farm, on a farmstead about 20 miles north of that other town where he had committed the initial act, and he was walking around with a long gun. So they contacted the farm owner, who said, "I don't know this guy. I don't know why he's at my house, but there's nobody else there." So they activated SWAT, and we went out there. And this was back in the day before we even had armor. So we were rolling around in an old Air Force runway vehicle as a
Oh boy.
transport van. It was just,
Yeah.
plywood walls and everything, and
No Bearcat.
no Bearcat, no nothing. So we do our thing, and to compress the story, we were watching him from a tree line, and he kept going to a pickup on the property, and the pickup was at such an angle where we could see the passenger side but not the driver's door. We could see his legs go to the driver's door, and then his feet would stay on the ground. He would lean way in like he was putting something in the passenger side of the truck.
Mm.
And the assumption was that it was guns, because the homeowner had told us, like, there's guns behind the front door, there's long guns behind the bedroom door, there's just guns everywhere in this house, not locked up. So we just assumed that he's stashing guns in there and getting ready to take off. So we send a contingent of 2 guys over around another section of the farmstead to get some eyes on what he's doing in the truck. So they're coming through the tree row and hiding behind a pile of wood to see what he's doing. And at that time, we moved up nearer the truck. The rest of the team did. And we still can't see this guy. I still haven't seen anywhere but below his neck or above his knees. It's been kind of frustrating because he's been back and forth, and he had fired around. I don't think he was shooting at us, but he had fired around through the window of the house toward our direction. But we
This
don't think that he was shooting at us.
this
But
is not his house, right?
no, it's just some random guy's house.
But the random guy has guns in his house. Just
The random guy
everywhere.
has guns everywhere in the house,
Yeah.
obviously. So,
Yeah.
but so we move up, and there's a bush, the truck, a huge bush, and then a little outbuilding. So part of our team goes to the corner of the outbuilding to get eyes on the front door of the target house. And then me and another operator, we confirmed with our team lead, and we broke off and we went around the bush that was to the driver's side of the truck. And as we're clearing that bush, we hear the two guys that had broken off to get eyes on him. They were saying he's out front with a gun. He's out front. He's pointing the rifle at us. So I'm pieing the bush, and all I can see when I clear the last branch of that bush is he's got a cheek weld on his rifle, looking down the sights at the two guys behind the wood pile. And the problem was that those guys and the rest of the team were at 180 degrees from this guy, so they were all in a crossfire situation and couldn't take a shot. So I was at a 90-degree angle, and I knew like my friends are about to get shot. So like the second I saw him, flip off safe, and it wasn't a shoot don't shoot decision. It was just, this guy has to die now. So
Right.
I squeezed one round off, and got it like right in the side of the head.
Oh, wow.
And I remember immediately time just stood still. There was no recoil on the rifle, and through my EOTech reticle, it was just crystal clear 4K. Everything outside was kind of faded to black. And I remember thinking, oh shit, I just killed a guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my firstborn daughter was 3 months old at the time. And I'm like, I'm going to prison. She's not going to have a dad. How are we going to pay for college for her? And, just thinking about this and thinking about this. And
Yeah.
then I was like, I still got work to do. So I kind of like remember physically like shaking it out of my head, and put a few more rounds down range. And that's one of the lessons I learned from it. After the shooting, he was obviously dead. Like, it wasn't going to be a problem, but the rest of the team moved up, cuffed him, and cleared the residence real quick. And the rest of the operation took maybe 30 seconds, but I was out. I had not mentally prepared myself for what do you do after a shooting. I fully prepared for up to and including pulling the trigger if needed, but never once did I thought, what do you do after that? So that's where, that's lessons learned. And what I always try to tell people is, do your shoot, don't shoot, do your if thens, but also go after the fact. And what are you going to do after you pull the trigger? What are you going to do after that? Where are you going to go? So after the shooting in that one, and they were clearing the house, I remember I just sat down behind another vehicle that was there, and one of the other operators came up, and he was giving me support and took my rifle and gave me some water and all that. So he was great. But yeah, that was the first one, and
that's intense, dude. That's great that your team member came over, because that's what we should do to support you, and where you are today, you keep your sidearm though, right? They might take the rifle, but you keep the sidearm. Yeah, that's good. I know there was sometime in history there was a point where they would take your guns, and then they found that was more psychologically damaging to officers, because it's a sign of your authority. It's like your badge, and it's also saying like you may have done something wrong, so you can't have this anymore. So now they do
take the one that was used, and that's just for evidentiary purposes. And
right. I've even heard of guys on the scene in a shooting, because they have to take the gun, a sergeant giving him their gun and just putting it in their holster, just to make them whole again. Because you already feel like like you were saying in your head, you kind of feel like you lost something, or something is in like such a good point about what do you do afterwards. I've never done that. I can't imagine how you feel, but it's emotional and it's traumatic. So you've kind of been made whole again once you have your gun back, and you're
and it shows that they still trust you, and you didn't do anything wrong, and it's a big deal.
What was the distance for that shot?
I think it was 75 feet or so. I think only 25 yards, not too far.
Yeah, not too bad for a rifle.
The reason I mentioned the thoughts about my daughter and the going to prison and the college, because I felt that I had fired a round and had all these thoughts, and then got back on the gun, and other guys on scene reported just a constant string of gunfire. They're like, there were no pauses. It was one right after the other, and it's just the time dilation, or the time distortions, and the auditory exclusion is unreal. Like, we had the bone conducting mic, so I wasn't wearing ear pro, and had no ringing of the ears, didn't hear a single shot going off, but I do remember brass tumbling out of the ejection port.
Yeah.
Just everything
Interesting.
was just kind of slow and like that intrusive thoughts and just without it actually happening in real life, it was strange.
Yeah, I've heard that from other people that and I think Wyatt Earp said that how things seem to slow down. So that's probably there's probably a sign of a good gunfighter, like where time slows down like that. Maybe there's a connection there. The guy whose house it was, is there a law in North Dakota for securing your weapons, or can you just have them all around your house?
You can just have them.
Oh, that's awesome. It's probably
Yeah.
not, there's got to be laws for kids though, right? If you have kids in the house.
I guess I'm not sure.
That's great. You guys are wide open.
Yeah, we just got the constitutional carry thing a couple of years ago, and that hasn't been a problem at all.
Yeah, that's great. I'm not opposed to the one for kids, but I do like the idea of, like in Mass, I like the idea of having, it's your house and you can have weapons and do what you
Right.
will with them within the law. In Mass, they have like if it's under your control. So like, it's always like if you go to a house and there's like a loaded handgun on top of the fridge and mom's in the kitchen, but it's not her gun, but there's kids in the house. It makes it harder for like what are you supposed to do
Yeah.
with the law on
I can
that?
see that.
You kind of like gotta throw it at the court, and then they can. Mass is like a lot of like things are decided at the court. It's not like we don't have like a real traditional like penal code kind of. It's a lot of it's
Okay.
like case law-y. That's my feel of it. That's probably technically inaccurate, but that's what it kind of feels like, where there's a lot of gray in these gun laws, and
Yeah.
we're like baby
Yeah.
California with gun laws.
Yeah. Well, after that shooting, there was some time of some emotions and just
Sure.
coming to grips with having killed somebody, but for the most part everything was good. And then my daughter started getting older and I had another kid, and then it was probably 3-4 years and the guilt really started setting in, because
Wow.
I never got sued from the suspect's only living relative was his dad. I never got sued. I never heard from dad. Our department never got a nasty letter. Got never anything. And the guilt was there that I took somebody's kid from them, and they maybe don't know why, and they maybe, you know, I was hoping that the dad didn't think that it was just another day or that it wasn't necessary or whatever.
Or yeah, it wasn't
So there was a
impactful to
lot of
you.
guilt. Yeah, there was a lot of guilt and just wanting to tell that guy's dad, like, this is what happened, and I didn't, I don't want to go out there and kill somebody, but this is what
Right.
happened and why I had to. But we never heard anything. So around late 16, early 17, I moved to my hometown to start at that police department. And I remember dropping my daughter off at preschool and driving back. I just was sitting in my car and just tears rolling down my face. And it was just like, why am I crying? It's just, I have no idea. And finally I texted my wife and like, I think I'm going to go see somebody because
Yeah.
this is ridiculous. And so I went to our EAP counselors, and they were great. They got me onto EMDR. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I swear by it. It's witchcraft, but I swear by it. I love it.
Is
And
that's the
eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, where they do like the left right thing, and you kind of just let stuff come to mind. And
I've seen videos on that like within the last 6 months. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I swear by it. I love it. And we did a few sessions of those, and basically all it is you sit there with these little paddles in your hand that they vibrate left, right, and you sit there with your eyes closed, and stuff will come up, and memories will come up, and then every once in a while the counselor will stop the paddles and ask what you're thinking about. And
Interesting.
after 3 or 4 sessions, it was just all dead babies that you deal with over the course of a career, after like the fourth session, I looked at her. I'm like, I'm starting to think this is more about the dead babies than the shooting. And she's like, I was waiting for you to realize that.
Wow.
So, they add up over the course of her career. And I'm a huge proponent of seeing somebody and talking them things through and getting help if you need it, because everything adds up.
Absolutely, man. And thankfully, that is kind of a movement right now, too. There's a lot of kind of cops that have done what you've done, had to shoot somebody in the line of duty, and they've kind of made it their mission after retirement to more normalize that, the mental health aspect. And did the department, like after the initial shooting, did they suggest or give you any kind of mandatory counseling?
No, you have the requisite time off, and then before I was cleared for duty, it was just seeing the department psychologist, the one that you see, prior to getting hired, and then
Right.
they wanted me to take the I forget what it's called, the psych test. It's like 400 some questions. They wanted me to take that just because, and it was kind of interesting that I think that was 5 or 6 years into my career, and when I initially took that psych test, I was naive and optimistic, and then after that shooting, I took it and I was pessimistic and narcissistic or something. It was like 180-degree shift in just 6 years of small town police work and
Right. Yeah.
seeing the things that you see.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. I want to ask you a question about when you said, when you initially fired the first round, you had that thought that, I'm going to go to jail. I'm going to be in trouble for murder. Do you think that was kind of spurred, maybe even partially, by the climate of the country with shootings, where it's like, it used to be like, yeah, you're getting the bad guy, you took him out, you did the right thing, and now it's kind of like cops are a lot of times wrongfully being tried for murder, for shootings. Do you think that was part of the thought
in my
process?
case, I don't think it was. I think, it's just a lifetime of, killing someone is bad. Don't do
Well, there's that too. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that. So I think that's where mine came from. It was just like, oh shit, I shouldn't have, you're not supposed to kill somebody.
Right.
Even though, like, obviously
Just
I
good
had
old
to.
fashioned morals. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And I wasn't, after the fact, I wasn't ever worried about any legal issues with it. It was 100% clear cut.
Right.
I think one of my rounds went through the action of his gun, so it's not, there's no, it's like, obviously he had the gun and I shot
Right.
him and everybody else witnessed to it. And so I wasn't concerned at all about any prosecution after the fact, but it was just one of those thoughts that pops up. And
Yeah.
but
Absolutely.
if we have some time, I don't know,
Yeah, we got
a
time,
little
brother.
bit of time left, but after a few sessions of that EMDR, I was starting to feel really good,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of reverted back to once every couple of months sessions with my counselor, and then got into a second shooting, and that one was a fugitive apprehension, and I won't go too into detail with it. It was 3 years ago now, but we're still well within the window of the legal stuff. So,
Sure.
but the short story is we went to this residence for armed robbery suspect from out of state, and you can't plan for anything because it's always something random. Like we're studying the outside of this apartment, the windows, trying to figure out the layout, and talking to the owner of the apartment, the renter, and they confirmed that dude was in there. They gave us a layout of the apartment, and our plan was breach and hold, call them out. But basically, we breached, and this apartment, it was a kitchen and then a dining room and then some little quarter walls and then a long living room. It wasn't small like we had thought. It was actually pretty large. And suspect was on the couch in the living room just watching TV, and he had made himself a bedroom on the far end of the living room by putting a sheet into the drop ceiling with a mattress behind it. So he immediately springs up and jumps on his bed and starts digging through stuff, and then he tears a sheet down. And so he's got in his left hand draped over the right side of his body, saying he has a knife. So we kind of just hold there, and we're trying to negotiate with him, trying to talk him into surrendering and coming to us, dropping the sheet, showing us his hands, all the things. And he wanted to talk to his kid first. He wanted to call his kid because it was his kid's birthday. And his phone was right by a pair of kitchen shears on the table, like the bone cutting scissors. And I didn't think he had anything in his right hand. I thought he was bluffing, and I knew he wanted to get to that kitchen shears. So we were telling him, you can make all the phone calls you want once you're in cuffs. We'll give you your phone. We'll do it then. But he was insistent, and then he would want water, and there was a glass of water right by his phone and the kitchen shears, and we were telling him, don't reach for the water, don't reach for the water. And this lasted 30-40 minutes of us talking back and forth with him, and it's not.
Oh my gosh!
We have a recording of it, and it's not adversarial. It's initially it was loud, clear commands, and then it was talking back and forth for 30-40 minutes, seeing what we could do to resolve it.
Sure.
All the while the SWAT team is spooling up, and we're getting more resources there and stuff. But so eventually we got a 40 millimeter launcher in there, with the sponge rounds, and long story short, the first 40 millimeter round gets sucked up. Most of the energy is dissipated by the sheet, but it does make him move to a wall, and he braces his hand on the wall, and we could see his right hand was empty at that point. But then he picked up like a clothes hamper to protect himself from another 40 millimeter, and they shot him again with the 40 millimeter. And at that point, I'll never know for sure, but I think he knew that he was going to die, and he wanted to try to take one or more of us with him. And he dove to that kitchen shears and grabbed it and just ran across the room directly toward me and my partner, to obviously murder us. And so we started shooting at him. And one thing I remember is we were tracking him across the room, and my partner was behind my right shoulder, and I could feel my partner's muzzle blast on my knuckles. And I was like, oh, that's far enough. I'm not going to get my hand blown off.
Yeah.
And then another thing was it was completely silent. We're in this small enclosed space, and we fired 8 rounds between us, and no ear protection, no nothing, and never had ringing in the ears, never heard a shot being fired. And then he was killed pretty much instantly, about halfway to us. And so after that one, I knew what to expect emotionally, but that was kind of like dreading it now. Like, oh shit,
Yeah.
This was a righteous shoot. There's not going to be any legal issues, but now I'm in for the roller coaster again, and it's going to be a problem. And my partner had never been in a shooting before, and I'm worried about him. And so that was the big thing after that shooting, was just waiting for the shoe to drop, with the guilt coming in and
yeah,
all of that. So
damn, man. That's pretty crazy. I mean, and that happened not that long after the other one.
That one was actually 8 years after.
Oh, it was? Okay.
First one was 2012. This was 2020.
Oh, so not too long after you did the EDMR.
EMDR, yeah. Yeah, I was starting to, it took like 5-6 years to start feeling really guilty, then a couple of years to actually get help. And then once I was starting to get really good, then we got number 2. So,
right.
But my administration is fantastic. They came out and they brought pistols with them, gave us new pistols, gave us anything we needed, supported us. They're fantastic.
That's great. And did that treatment help with this one too?
Actually, it didn't. I think the only thing I can think of is I had a shield up, and I was around the shield. And when he started running at me, I didn't have a real clear view of him. I could see over the shield, I could see him with the knife running, and then from there it was just point shooting, because he was only 10 feet away from us when he fell. So I don't think there was much visual cue to go on for EMDR.
Oh, okay, that's part of it.
And then my counselor kind of she left the EAP program shortly after that. So
gotcha. How is your hearing, my man? I mean, I know I've heard that we have a certain biological function for loud noises like that to protect our hearing. But have you had any? Do you get tinnitus or anything after these indoor
No,
shootings?
I my hearing is just fine, and I don't know any of the biology behind it, but I've you know thankful for it, but I don't know why.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm a big I want suppressors on our duty rifles just because I think they're cool. And I just want to be like, well, if we shoot inside, then we could have some hearing damage. But a lot of guys say that about the shooting, that they're it's shockingly unaffected when
Yeah,
they're
and I think it's only for the shooters. I think everybody else in the room probably had ringing ears.
right, right,
Yeah,
absolutely.
but I got in the habit of texting my wife. She's on Facebook and she always sees stuff pop up like shots are fired and police and all this stuff. And so I was getting the habit of texting my wife like, I'm good, I'm not a shooter. I was there but I didn't shoot, or bad guys down, we're all up and all that. And so she's gotten used to getting those texts. And then this last one, the second shooting, she was on the phone with her friend when I sent her the text, shots fired, he's down, we're up, I'm a shooter, and I'll be late, I'll be like coming home a
Right.
little late today. And, so she's on the phone with her friend and she's like, oh my God, I gotta go. So I feel bad for my wife, not a lot of accountants' wives get those texts. So
Yeah,
she's got a lot to deal with sometimes. Or,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, they feel kind of powerless to it, because
Mhm.
they're not part of that world at all.
Right. And I just don't want her sitting at home seeing that, there's shots fired by police or at police. And, or, you fill in the blanks with all the worst thoughts if you don't know. So at the first opportunity, I always like to shoot her a text that I'm good.
Yeah, yeah. My growing up, a friend of my mom's had a police scanner, and she had family that was law enforcement, and she loved the scanner. Some people just love to hear what's going on in town. They want to hear,
Hmm.
but it leaves you with a lot of unanswered questions when you have a scanner at home,
Yeah.
because they don't come on later and go, well, this is what happened. It's like, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
So my mom was like the opposite. She never wanted to be listening. She never wanted to hear. I think she was over at the woman's house, and good friend and family, very sweet woman. And I think my mom said there was like a robbery or something, and my dad was working, and she was like, nope. Because now she's like, all she wants to do is call the police station and be like, put Tim on the phone. You know what I mean? So she said, I'm just better off not thinking about not hearing that stuff. And I think that's true. I mean, everybody's different. Everybody's designed differently, but I don't, I wouldn't like it either. I wouldn't like to have like just bits and pieces of what my spouse is doing in dangerous situations. I think it would drive me mad.
Yeah. You need the whole story.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a big thing for dispatchers too. Like I feel for them, because they are at our dispatch center. There'll be a crazy night, and they don't, unless you do a real good little narrative in the CAD, they don't get answers either. Like
Right.
their job's real stressful, and they don't get. So I think if something's real bizarre or spicy or whatever, I try to kind of text them or something and be like,
Yeah.
this is what's going on. This is what happened, because I don't know. It just makes their job all the more kind of stressful. Not knowing,
Right. Yeah.
not getting.
At my first agency, the dispatch center was in the police department. So they got, we'd stop in, have coffee, and they got all the details about everything. And this
Mm,
one, it's in its own secure building and you can't get in there. And so they never
right.
hear anything.
Yeah, ours is at a state police barracks, so it's like, and it's 40 minutes from me.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's like, I've never even been there. I've been where I am now for just under 3 years, and I've never met these people in person. I keep saying I'm going to go up there and bring them like coffee and donuts or something, but
Yeah.
I really should. But it's the same thing. It's in a state barracks, so it's like, you don't just walk in. It's not your police
Right.
department. It's a different agency. So yeah, I feel you with that. All right, Tom. Can you tell us a heartwarming situation from your career?
Yes. I love this story. God, when was that? That was probably 2014. The laws kind of changed a little bit as far as taking children from parents if we felt it necessary. Before we had to get permission from child protective services to take the child, and
Okay.
their standards sometimes were frustratingly high.
Yes.
And it was right around 14 that changed. And I went to a report. It was just a welfare check at one of our CD hotels, and knock on the door, and these two parents were in there with their 3-day-old infant daughter, and they were smoking meth.
Ugh.
And so immediate arrest, seize the baby, and take the baby, give it to CPS, and say, here, this child is not theirs anymore. And my wife's acquaintances are foster parents, and they fostered this baby. And a year later, the parents gave up parental rights to the baby, and the new family got to adopt her. My wife's acquaintances officially adopted her. And 2 years after that, it was exactly the same circumstances. The same couple had another baby, got that one taken away, and my wife's acquaintances adopted that one too. So the biological siblings now live in a wonderful home. And every once in a while, I'll see a picture on Facebook of the daughter, because she's my middle daughter's age, and like the first day of school pictures and stuff, and she's happy and attending school, and
that's beautiful,
that's my
man.
favorite story. And
hell yeah, I love that story.
Teaching at the academy, and the adopted dad is a police officer in North Dakota now too. And I didn't know him, but he came up to me after my class, and he's like, "You don't know me, but I'm her dad." And part of the reason he wanted to be a cop was because he wanted to help out. So
that's awesome, man. That is great. Yeah. That's a huge win for the police world, to get something like that. That's awesome. We don't in Mass. We have to. We're pretty involved with DCF. Like they've taken a lot of heat over the years nationally for not taking kids quick enough. So I think they're a little bit more proactive now. They have much more stringent response times. But like if a kid's in immediate danger, we can separate, but we would just call them, But you guys actually have the authority to remove them from the situation, then contact them later.
I don't remember the exact wording of the law, but it was basically we make the decision, and then CPS kind of had to deal with it.
Right.
Obviously, we can't house the children or anything, but it was.
Right. You live at the police department now.
Yeah. Put a car seat in the squad and wait till they grow up.
Right. Dude, that's awesome. That's a beautiful story, man. Thank you for sharing it. All right, we're over an hour here. I got one more question for you if you got a second. Advice to new police officers. People really love this question. Someone with all the experience you have, what would you tell new candidates?
Do it. Don't let anybody talk you out of it. If you're in an area that doesn't appreciate police, or you don't feel comfortable policing in, there's tons of places that would love to have you and love their police departments. I work in a place where I'm far more likely to get coffee and a donut bought for me than get a finger.
Right.
It's just there's places out there where the administration lets you be cops, and the public loves you. And go find one of those. It's the best job in the world. Every day, my partner and I look at each other and like, we have the best job ever.
That's awesome.
It's awesome.
I like it. No hesitation at all. Just do it.
Yeah.
Good answer, man. Because a lot of people are conflicted with that statement now. A lot of cops, because they're it's funny. Guys will start out and say like, well, don't do it or whatever. And then by the end of them talking their way through it, they're like, it's the best job. You should do it. But
absolutely. Just find a good place to work and you'll love it.
Yeah, you had that caveat in there, and that's wise. I'm kind of hiding out in the western part of Massachusetts, in the Hilltown area, and it's a lot of. And Mass in general is like they're super liberal, but there is still a very big wanting of law and order. It's not one of these places that's going to let like Boston have an encampment of protesters. Like they kind of fiend being super liberal, but when it comes down to it, they like law and order. They don't like high crime. We do get a lot of support, and we get a lot of. I feel like a lot of the anti-police stuff is a lot of people kind of marching in lockstep with their party's national narrative. But then when you actually deal with them on a call or help them, None of that is there. You know what I mean? And they will.
Yeah, it's a very vocal minority. But
yes, it's very visual, but yeah, you're right. It's not.
Yeah.
Most people really are appreciative of what police officers are doing. So don't be duped by, that uncle you have that just watches CNN all day and has his opinion. So, Tom, it was an honor to have you on the show, brother. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing those stories.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
My pleasure, man. Let me do the outro. Can you hang on for like a couple minutes?
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. The great Tom G. Damn, man, those were some great stories from North Dakota. Loved it. Guys, thank you for tuning in and watching the show and listening. The show is on, speaking of watching it, it's on YouTube. I was late to the YouTube game, and I really got to push it more. But if you could subscribe to the YouTube channel, that'd be awesome. Also, we're on Instagram. You can find us there and follow us. And let me just get down to the time of the show where I thank the Patreon sponsors, the people that keep the lights on, keep the boat afloat, that keep this show going. What I'm talking about is the great Andy Biggs, Greg Gadboy, ladies and gentlemen, the great Adam Mehall, Chris June, the great Gary Steiner, the handsome Jake Pinedo, John Shoemaker, ladies and gentlemen, Lauren Stimson, the handsome Lane Campbell, the great Seth Wright, James Rose, Tony Fahey, holding it down overseas. The great Ben Peters, Braden Walker, everybody. Jason Lau, ladies and gentlemen. The great Mike Wynn, Sasha McNabb, Scott Minkler, the great Tammy Walsh, holding it down in dispatch. Sean Clifford, Dennis Carrasquillo, everybody. Iceman from Motor Cop Chronicles. George Tessier, I'll see you at church, brother. Nick Noose, Scott Young, the great Thomas Connell, everybody. Wayne M. Mill, retired ATF and author. Check him out. Dan Carlson from Burleyboar is doing amazing things with wood. Go check him out. Doug and Kelly Newman, love you guys. See you at church. The great Joe DeFries. Dave Ellman, everybody. Elliot Sykes. Richard Tolles, keep on trucking, brother. Stay safe out there. Christian. Jace Crow. Brad Thompson, Kyle Roberts, Zach Haney, the great Nancy Hammond, and Clark Lockup. Guys, I can't thank you enough, but I'll do it one more time. Thank you for the support and your continued contributions to the show. I love it. I love to see it. If you have it in your heart and you want to give, go to the link in the show notes, and I will see you guys next week.